Thank you for coming by to American Project. Please be sure to like and subscribe. We're pushing for that 1,000 mark and we need your help. Thank you. Let's get started. Peter Navarro sentenced to 4 months in prison for defying a January 6 subpoena. Washington. Peter Navarro, a former Trump White House advisor, has been sentenced to 4 months in prison in order to pay $9,500 in fines for his refusal to comply with congressional subpoenas that he said were covered by executive privilege. I haven't heard a word of contrition from Dr. Navarro since the case began, said U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta during Mr. Navarro's sentencing hearing on January 25th. While issuing his sentence, Judge Mehta noted Mr. Navarro's academic accomplishments and said that he didn't come from means and overcame financial challenges in his life. He said that the country owes a great debt of gratitude to Mr. Navarro for his work on the coronavirus. The sentencing hearing started with Judge Mehta reviewing the defense's objections to statements made in legal filings alleging a lack of communication with the White House Select Committee investigating January 6, 2021, after his February 9, 2022 subpoena. Mr. Navarro had received subpoenas from the committee, and in September 2023, a jury found him guilty of 2 counts related to contempt of Congress, willful failure to provide records, and willful failure to appear for testimony. Each charge carried the possibility of a $100,000 fine and 30 days to a year in prison. During his closing remarks, Judge Mehta seemed to scold Mr. Navarro, telling him that the words, quote, executive privilege, unquote, weren't magical or a get-out-of-jail-free card. He also criticized Mr. Navarro for purportedly not acknowledging his role as an American to cooperate with Congress. Judge Mehta went on to defend the January 6th committee. They had a job to do, and you made it harder. It wasn't a kangaroo court. The public can see that. Judge Mehta seemed incredulous that Mr. Navarro wanted him to think the prosecution was political in nature. He told Mr. Navarro, "You are not a victim. You are not the object of a political prosecution. You have received every process that you are due." The defense and Judge Mehta discussed the need for Mr. Navarro to acknowledge wrongdoing. He said Mr. Navarro didn't express a clear acceptance of responsibility and noted that his sentencing memo accused the Department of Justice of a politicized prosecution. That seems to me the opposite of accepting responsibility, Judge Mehta said. On January 16th, Judge Mehta denied his motion for a new trial over concerns the jury pool had been prejudiced by protesters present when jurors took a lunch break. Just another quiet day of put Peter in prison and free the January 6 prisoner signs outside the courtroom as jurors in the middle of deliberations inexplicably roam free. Mr. Navarro told the Epoch Times at the time, "Nothing apparently to see here." His sentencing memo requested no more than 6 months of probation and a fine of $100 for each count. It also requested the court grant Mr. Navarro release pending his appeal. Mr. Navarro's legal bills exceeded $1 million. His legal team argued that he didn't willfully disobey the subpoenas because former President Donald Trump had invoked executive privilege. Dr. Navarro's actions do not stem from a disrespect for the law, nor do they stem from any belief that he is above the law. Rather, Dr. Navarro acted because he reasonably believed he was duty-bound to assert executive privilege on former President Trump's behalf. Mr. Navarro spoke during a hearing despite his attorney saying he had been advised against doing so. Mr. Navarro thanked the judge during his statement and claimed he was led to believe that executive privilege had been invoked and accepted. At one point, he told Judge Mehta that proving mens rea, legal concept that a defendant knew their conduct was illegal, apparently doesn't matter in this courtroom. Judge Mehta interrupted and argued that he himself didn't prevent Mr. Navarro from utilizing mens rea, but instead, his reading of the law led him to believe that it should be excluded. Mr. Navarro also touched on the events of January 6, 2021. "I don't want to bring politics in, but we can respectfully disagree about the political environment surrounding all of this," he said. Mr. Navarro's attorneys argued that Dr. Navarro's conviction reflects the application of antiquated, questionable precedent in this district. History is replete with those who have refused to comply with congressional subpoenas. And Dr. Navarro's sentence should not be disproportionate from those similarly situated individuals. Mr. Navarro is just one of many Trump associates to face prosecution related to the events of January 6, 2021. And a subsequent congressional investigation. The Department of Justice, meanwhile, called Mr. Navarro's executive privilege defense meritless. The sentence imposed on the defendant must vindicate the authority of Congress to investigate matters of national importance and demonstrate that attacks on Congress' lawful authority as a co-equal branch of government will not be tolerated, its sentencing memo read. It also noted how the court found that Mr. Navarro hadn't provided sufficient of evidence to prove that President Trump had invoked executive privilege. Mr. Navarro's attorneys accused the DOJ of betraying its duty of impartiality in multiple ways. The government's betrayal is manifest of its true motive: the prosecution of a senior presidential advisor of a chief political opponent. There you have it. Thanks for coming by. Be sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. God bless.